agents. Why would they still be here if they feared it?
Why would I make them so uncomfortable?
Who are you people?
So what do you think is the biggest threat right now?
I think the biggest threat's the FBI, the NSA, and their counterparts in foreign governments. I mean, these are all essentially, companies, right, that try to justify their budgets in various ways, often by scaremongering.
I make this look good.
What are the Men in Black? People have been reporting their own Men in Black experiences and eyewitness accounts since the beginning of the UFO cover-up history. The burning question in most people's minds surrounding the infamous MIB accounts is, what are the Men in Black?
Well, the Men in Black is a concept that's been in the UFO field since really the beginning of the UFO field, essentially. And there's a weird thing about it because there's always been two different components to this phenomenon. There are cases where a UFO witness or someone who has some connection to the UFO phenomenon is then accosted by usually two individuals, often in pairs, sometimes singular, sometimes even more than two, but often two. And there are times when very ordinary, human-looking intelligence types approach someone and either warn them off of their investigation or will actually make it very clear to them that they're dealing with a UFO phenomenon. But in all cases, the idea is to scare off or intimidate the witness so that they don't pursue whatever it is that they're looking into.
Yeah, it all seems pretty horrible, especially if they threaten you or threaten your family, and you're not sure if they're from another planet or not.
Historical accounts of the Men in Black recall the overwhelming sensation of fear experienced by those who have had prior encounters with UFOs or something out of the extraordinary. This fear is a tool used to suppress an incredible UFO event from the public. What are their true goals? Are they outdated military relics from the past, or are they covertly influencing today's society through misinformation, fake news? The earliest recorded encounter with a Man in Black was in 1947. Harold Dahl, a conservationist, was near the shore of Murray Island in Washington.
Dahl's job was to retrieve serviceable lumber that was often just floating around in the water back in those days. And he would bring it back, and that would be their business. That's their business model. And so Dahl is out in a boat for this purpose with his teenage son and dog, actually. And he sees 6 discs. We're talking, this is June 1947. This is actually right before, a couple of days before, Kenneth Arnold's famous sighting of flying saucers over by Mount Rainier in the state of Washington. So just a few days before that, Dahl is out in his boat in the water, and he sees these 6 disc-like objects. One of them's in trouble. Wobbling, and it seems to be losing its stability. And the other discs come toward it, according to his description. And this disc that's in trouble releases material that almost looked like some kind of slag that is like a rocky type of material that comes out. And according to what Dahl said, some of this material hit his son, injuring his son's arm, and supposedly killed his dog. And then after the object lost its material, it regained its stability, and all of these objects then departed. So Dahl spoke to his supervisor, Fred Chrisman. Here's where the Men in Black scenario comes in with Harold Dahl. The next day, what it comes down to is there's a diner. There was a diner in that area where he's having breakfast the next day, and he has a conversation with this mysterious man he's never met before. Dahl initially expected this man was a lumber dealer, and he was expecting just to do a standard business arrangement with this guy. He dealt with strangers all the time who were interested in lumber. It turns out this man was nothing of the sort. This man then relates every single thing that had happened to Dahl the previous day. And he knew all about it, to Dahl's shock. I mean, that would be a shocking thing for anyone to experience. And this mysterious man essentially said, look, you're just going to leave this alone, and you're not going to pursue this in any way whatsoever if you know it's good for you. And so that's an intimidating experience for so many reasons. You can imagine poor Harold Dahl thinking, this is 1947. You're in America in 1947. You're not under the assumption that you're living in a surveillance state. And so you can imagine the shock he had to have felt thinking, wait, what? How do you know about anything that happened to me yesterday? So there's that level. And then there's the implied threat from this man, which just added to it. Dahl did not have in his possession the slag at the time. There was an enormous amount of this stuff. So, like, we're talking much more than any one person could carry around with them. The bulk of this ended up in the possession of Fred Chrisman, Dahl's boss. And eventually, the United States Air Force sends 2 men to investigate and retrieve whatever this material is. And they actually do get to do this, and they load all of this slag material onto a Air Force transport. Actually, this is Army Air Corps at the time. This is just before the Air Force has become an independent, unified entity separate from the Army. So they come up from McCord Airfield in California to acquire this material, and they do. And on their way back from Maury Island, their plane catches fire and goes down, and they die. That's what happened. And after that, I don't know what happened to the slag material or whatever this was, but their plane crashed.
What is the true mission of the Men in Black? Is it the suppression of information regarding UFOs and extraterrestrials? Or is it to aid them and further their agenda?
Well, let me tell you, Jim, I've had visits from government agents, various alphabet-type organizations connected to the work that I do here. And they are, even though they seem easygoing and very nice guys, there is no question about it, Jim. I'm just talking about normal government agents here. In black suits, you know they're carrying, they've got a sort of a serious, we're here and you don't want to mess with us kind of attitude about them. And even though they're very nice and very calm, there's no question about the fact that there is an aura of intimidation that you could cut with a knife.
So relating to the story of a man named Albert Bender, who also had a very interesting experience, which actually coined the phrase Men in Black. Bender was one of the earliest organizers of kind of civilian UFO groups. It was the International Flying Saucer Bureau. It was a publication that was quite successful by 1952 standards, you know, printing out the publication, mailing it out, and getting subscriptions that way. It's not easy. It wasn't easy to do back then.
Albert K. Bender founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau in 1952 during the big UFO flap. Now, this is a phenomenon that he had been studying and following for years and decided that there needed to be one centralized location to put all of this information that had been gathered.